I recently had a LinkedIn comment on a video I created that has changed the way I think about communication. Now, I really hope that you watch this whole video, as I believe that if I can flip a switch in your brain, I will make your world just a little bit bigger today. And at the end, I do have a small but significant favor to ask of you, so stick around for that. The comment in question was by Anru Barnard, and it read, "Spot on. Starting a business is like starting a family. It's never the right time." Now, you may be scratching your head wondering what's so earth-shattering about this comment, but the hint is in the two words just below it. See original. You see, what Anru actually said was, "Indicol. Om 'n besigheid te begin is soos om met 'n gesin te begin. Dit is nooit die regte tyd nie." Ja, well, no fine, I praat dit al baie deliciously. Arno, who I know speaks English just fine, was comfortable enough to comment in his mother tongue of Afrikaans, and I could not respect him more for it. We live in a world in which we have built-in translation tools in just about everything. Heck, my phone can translate calls in real time.
Hey, I'm at gate 6 wearing a grey shirt.
ฉันอยู่ที่ประตู 6 สวมเสื้อสีเทา
ได้ครับ เดี๋ยวผมไปรับอีก2 นาที
I'll pick you up in 2 minutes.
And yet, we expect people to communicate in our language. It makes no sense, and it makes our world smaller, which, contrary to popular belief, is not great. I want to live in an expansive world. Subtle. Now, I just said our own language, but in truth, for most of us, we mean English. You see, English has won the language wars. Yes, I know, Spanish is the most natively spoken, but English has won by being the most spoken second language, which we quite ironically refer to as a lingua franca, which is an Italian term referring to the Sabar language that is made up of a concoction of Spanish, French, Arabic, Greek, Turkish, and Berber.
Say what now?
It's all very confusing, but put simply, English is the common tongue.
Oh, that makes sense.
If a Spanish person meets a German person in a bar in Beijing, they will almost certainly end up communicating in English. That's great, but it's also not. You see, there's a loss here. There's more to language than just words. Language is culture made vocal.
That's so true.
I recently watched the brilliant series Shogun, and I read the book, and I listened to the podcast. And in episode 1 of the podcast, they explained the detail they went into to making the show feel authentic. Listen to this.
Tell me a little bit about the translation process here.
So we went through this very detailed process to say, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right, where we would, of course, all of us wrote it in English.
Right.
Worked with a producer on the show who I would call kind of the voice in my ear from a cultural point of view, just to sort of make certain adjustments, as in someone wouldn't have said that kind of thing or been that direct with that kind of idea. So then we made some adjustments accordingly. Then we would send it to a team of translators in Tokyo who would kind of translate it into a modern Japanese of sorts, and they would hand that to a Japanese playwright who specialized in jidaigeki and, period Japanese, who spoke no English and would rewrite that dialogue into a more polished prose. And then that would, be performed. And when we did the subtitles, we translated back not from the script, but from the Japanese, we translated it again into English. And so the subtitles that you're reading on screen have gone through about 9 steps to get to where they are. And we're really proud of the attention to that detail, because I hope it shows an effort to say, if we're going to do the active translation, we're going to get it right, and we're going to do something that's very special.
So you see, the words we saw in the subtitles were not the same words written by the scriptwriters in the first place. In translation, beautiful things happened. Here's Anna Sawai giving a great example.
We speak period Japanese.
Oh.
So I had to do that and then do a sort of like a British accent.
It's old-timey, like thee and thou, and tis and wherefores?
Exactly.
Those kind of things?
Yes.
Like, is there an example of how it would differ from traditional Japanese?
So, for instance, if it was, where's the water? This is the water. We would just say kochira desu in modern language. But it would become kochira de gozarimasu. So it's a lot more long.
We tightened it up.
Yes, we love easy.
It's also great that the theme of translation was a core part of the actual plot of the show, as is demonstrated nicely with Anna Sawai that you just met playing the role of Mariko, the interpreter.
Mariko adds these sentiments, quietly controlling the tone of the exchange.
Till this milk-dribbling fucks me, I'm ready to go.
心得違いがあったと丁重に詫びておられまする。
So I highly recommend watching this great video next to go deeper on the role of translation in Shogun. But back to the point. Words matter. The actual words. As a speaker that's spoken to groups in 44 countries live and many more online, I know firsthand just how true this is. One of my favorite things to demonstrate this is candy floss. You know, the delicious sweet treat we all ate at the fun fair growing up. At least that's what I knew it as growing up in Scotland. Of course, in the US, it would be cotton candy. In French, though, it's called barbe de papa. grandfather's beard. In Swedish, it translates as sugar stuffing. In Greek, old lady's hair. But my all-time favorite is the aforementioned Afrikaans, where it is spoorkasem, ghost's breath. Isn't that so great? Yet we lose all that when we expect people to communicate in our language. And it's also limiting for another significant reason, as even though I understand Afrikaans fairly well, I feel embarrassed when I speak it or have to write it. That feeling you have speaking the language you learned as a second language in high school to a native speaker of that tongue is how we make many people feel every day when we expect them to communicate in English to us. It's like that meme where that person said, "Does your doors don't have locks?" To which the ignorant asshole replied, "Does your English haveth good?" Which led to a smackdown that Drickus du Plessis would be proud of when the original poster said, "You speak English because it's the only language you know. I speak English because it's the only language you know. We're not the same." This, my friends, brings me to the purpose of this video. I would like us to normalize communicating on posts in our own mother tongues. If we do that, we'll be more open to reading, engaging, and interacting with people that we may have ignored up until now. We'll start picking up on the beautiful nuances of language, the idioms and phrases that may be normal in other places, but they may not directly translate. And sure, often the translation software will mess that up and correct for clarity, but we will open ourselves to so much more. This leads me to my request. If you speak another language and have a thought about what I've discussed today or an anecdote to share, please comment down below in your language. And if you know somebody who speaks another one, please invite them to join the conversation. I know it's not going to be easy, but in my mind, I'd love it if the comments became a beautiful tapestry of language. One that would hang proudly in the halls of the Tower of Babel. Babel? Yeah. But not just in this video. Let's go back to a time where the common tongue, the lingua franca, was made up of beautiful parts. From now on, no more second language. You see, when we start removing the barrier of language, we will open ourselves up to a different group of people, and how great is that? So go out there and lead, proudly, in your own language, loud.